Tanya, do you want to? Tanya's going to pull up her screen here in a second. We're going to look at the purchase agreement. And I just want to go over a concept with you guys, just really first before we get too far into anything. Maybe this is something we should have talked about, in the very first class, about what meeting of the minds means. Does anybody have an opinion on what meeting of the minds is?
Both parties are satisfied as much as they're going to be.
Okay, that's one. Both parties is good, right? So I always carry a legal dictionary with me, just so I can spew this stuff out like I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so when two parties to a contract both have the same understanding of the terms of the agreement, such mutual comprehension is essential to a valid contract. It is probable by the express provisions of a written contract, without reference to any statements or hidden thoughts outside the writing, there would not be a meeting of the minds if Bill Byers said, "I'll buy your stock," and he meant shares in the corporation, and Sam Seller said, "I'll sell you all my stock," and he meant cattle, right? Okay, so we need to be specific. And so, Tanya, could you scroll down to let's go to the contingency section, which is, I think it starts at section 10 and goes through like 13. And yeah, go to the next page here. Okay, so here's a couple that get missed sometimes. At 12.1 and 12.2, so if you were to select that yes, there is a private well, or yes, there's an online septic system, but you haven't provided this stipulated form, these stipulated forms accordingly, then you have an agreement signed, you don't actually have a meeting of the minds, because there's additional terms on that form that are important to the sale. Furthermore, let's go down to, let's keep going on to the next page, Tanya. Let's go to the additional provision section. And right here, it's number 17, townhome and planned community, right? Same thing here, right? There's terms in that agreement that are paramount to the sale, right? We create a whole new contingency there, but we don't include that agreement. We don't have a meeting of the minds, even though we have an accepted offer. And one last, Tanya, and that would be down after at the occupancy section. And this is the one I see that's forgotten the most. So just a little bit further, was it down here? Right here, section 31, right here. In the event the buyer and seller agree, seller will deliver possession before or after closing. Agreement, OREF 053, agreement to occupy before closing, or agreement to occupy after closing will be attached to the sale agreement. That's the ones I see most of the time when I review paperwork, where people are like, "Oh, we'll figure that out later." Well, there's a ton of terms on that agreement. There's the date of possession, even though it's probably on here, but the term, like how much we're going to pay, how much insurance they're going to cover, who's going to live in the house, how many pets are going to live in the house, what happens if they don't pay, like all those things are paramount to the sale. And if we don't have, that's like 6 things right there, right? If we don't have those things agreed upon, we don't do it. So something to think about both on your sale and buy side, but since we're talking about sell side especially, I want to address that first. Tanya, anything to add to that?
Can I add something?
Of course.
I've noticed, because lately so many people are offering free rent back, they've been trying to avoid that form.
Right.
And I keep asking for it. Like,
Yeah.
no, we have to have this form, even if it's 0.
Absolutely.
We need a form that says it's 0.
Absolutely. Because again, there's all those other 5 or 6 things besides
Yeah.
just the rent back price.
Mhm.
They're super important. Like the insurance amount, that's really, really important.
Yeah.
What are you gonna happen? What happens if they don't leave? That's the biggest one, right?
Totally.
Yeah, we had one where even that form got kind of funny because the buyer didn't realize that the seller had renters in the property, had like 3 buddies living with them. And so when they went and saw the house the first time, it was immaculate, right? But then when they went back to like being a contractor there after they're well into contract, the place looked like a frat house and they were freaked out, right? So if that form hadn't been there, we would have had all kinds of trouble. So it's really important we have that form.
If you have a flexible date, like if you're trying to use that as part of your negotiation.
Yeah.
What do you recommend adding narrative to that, like with the
Absolutely.
additional provision?
Right, so go to the additional provision section of that occupancy agreement, and I've actually written this out before, like, seller to stay rent-free for this period of time, and then seller may elect to stay much further, this much further at the rate of this per month and per day or whatever, however it is you want to do it. So, but be specific. If you need help writing it, just let me know. Sometimes it takes a couple eyes, like, what you're writing, you know what you mean, but like, is it being translated through is often this kind of what I notice is where things break apart when we start freehanding terms. So send it over to me and ask me if that makes sense or not. But yeah, we go to the additional provision section of that and then just get specific, and I always start with, like, if I'm writing out a contract, like something that's getting really complicated, I actually just start just kind of bullet point, right? I just put like, this is a term, this is a term, this is a term, and I try to fill in the blanks in between. It makes it a lot easier than trying to get all fancy and eloquent.
Kelly, I have your exact terms written out right here. I saved it in a template.
Okay, and that's awesome. But there's one issue with this I just noticed the other day, is that should say actual damages. And I wrote that out, and liquidated damages are something, this is my bad, I'm not perfect. Liquidated damages, I know. Liquidated damages are something that's like pre-negotiated, like this would kind of be like liquidated damage. Like there's a section before this where it states the amount of the damages. Those are liquidated damages. Earnest money is a liquidated damage, and actual damage is an actual like cost that's figured out after the fact. So I was looking at that this morning, Tanya, and I was like, oh my gosh, I totally goofed that up. I need to change the wording on that. So,
Well,
yeah.
so there's no actual damages in mine, huh?
Right, just liquidated. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I dropped the ball now.
What form do you want now?
I don't know. Should we go to the offer? What do we think we should do? What do you guys want to see?
Well, we want to talk about getting multiple offers and the conversations to have with your seller and how to deal with them. And
okay. So if you have multiple offers, obviously you need to figure out a way to present them to the seller. If you're going to do it in person, if you're doing it via
you can do it in command.
there's a way to do it in command. I've used this before too. You can create your own spreadsheet. You need to be, what I was trying to find a way to identify the offer. So it's either by the name, like the name that's given to the offer or the agreement, the contract number, or just go to the buyer's name, but have like some way that you're having a discussion with your client that's specifically relating to that specific offer. All right. And stay consistent with it. Like terminology is so important because people start getting confused and frustrated. Like if you got 8 offers you're reviewing, changing the name of the offer while you're talking to them, like, oh, let's go to the Smith offer, and then refer to it later as like the offer number 65432. It's like, yeah, you're confusing me. So let's keep it all the same. So find a consistent way to communicate to identify each and every offer. Command does this, and Tanya, I'll let you jump in here and talk about it.
It's really, this is the simplest, easiest way to create a sheet. You can download it and send it to them in an email. You can email them directly through here. It's basically when you're entering your offers. So every time you get an offer, you're coming in and you're entering this information. So as you enter the offer, this would be offer number 4. You can name it whatever you want. Remember, it's how you're going to remember which one it is. And then you're going to put in the close date and the offer date. Say the offer date is today and the close date is in a couple of weeks because they're paying cash, right? Put in the name of the buyer because they're going to see it on the offer. Don't ask me why that one just came to my mind today. And then the agent on the other side, Kelly, you write a lot of offers for me. Thank you. And then you go to the terms. They don't let you just come in and enter in the sales price. So you do need to put in like how much cash are they bringing down? Well, we're going to do 100% cash, right? It's going to be a cash offer. Earnest money is going to be 15,000 because I don't know, just because. You don't need to put this information in here. You go to the analysis. This is where you can add in each of the things, right? So no appraisal, I wonder if we could do this. And then, so if it was another one that you would put in, like maybe this is a VA loan and the appraisal is waived, or not waived, but the appraisal will take longer, right? Different things that make it a better offer versus the other one. And then any cons that are in it. Maybe the con is not highest price, not highest offer. Let's say no appraisal, inspections waived. So then as you save it, and then now you come in and you can select all the offers that you have, and then just check that box and then compare the offers, and it brings you to this sheet. So now you can either just go through this, you can download it and send it to your clients or email directly in here. But it's a great way for you to like get them on the phone and have the conversation. Here's offer number 1, offer number 2, offer number 3, and offer number 4. And you can keep doing it as you get more in, right? And then compare each one on here. And then the only thing that we all know that we need to do is once we finally have an offer accepted, you have to come in and accept and then reject the other ones. And then you need to submit those in the documents. And
Go back to the other page and then hit the download button and let's see what that, can you show us what that looks like?
sure, I think it downloads a PDF. There you go. Simple.
That's cool, isn't it? Yeah. That's great.
Clean, simple. You don't have to have Excel. You don't have to do it on Google Sheets. You don't have to double enter the information, because guess what? You have to enter it in here in Command. So why not take advantage of that to do this for you instead of going onto another sheet and having it in so many different places, right?
Yeah, that's really nice to have. Rochelle, you've got a listing and you've got multiple offers on it. Like, what's your, like, how do you let's say you put the property on the market on Wednesday or Thursday, you get an offer. What's your next move? Are you setting a deadline? Are you not setting a deadline? When are you setting the deadline?
I always have that conversation before we go live with my clients so that we all have the same expectation. So I will explain to them multiple scenarios, like, so we could go live on Thursday and we could instantly have an offer, or we could go through the weekend and get no offers, or we could get 15 offers. So I just want to know what your expectation is. Would you like me to present each offer as they're presented to us, or would you rather us sit down and review all offers together? So we kind of have that conversation.
Yeah.
And then we talk about deadlines, and I give them my opinion on whether or not we should or should not set a deadline. Deadline can be good because it creates urgency, but deadline can also make people feel like, oh, they already have too many offers, let's not even try before we even have an offer.
Yeah.
So I always recommend let's not set a deadline until we actually have multiple offers, because we don't want to discourage one offer before we even have any,
Totally.
you know. So that's normally a conversation I have, and we normally have an agreement about that before we go live.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. You set that expectation ahead of time, and then you get to know kind of what they want to do too. And most likely the answer is, what do you think I should do?
Right.
But I think it's a great opportunity to have the conversation. I used to get asked this question a lot by buyer's agents, and I just thought, and I just ran across this morning because I was looking at a text stream I had with an agent. I really like the way I used to say this. When they ask me, like, so how are you reviewing offers? And my response was always, we'll review offers as they come and respond according to traffic. That was kind of what I thought that it was kind of a way of saying, to try to build a little bit of urgency, but let them know that we're going to respond according to what's going on. I probably would say, this was back in like 2015, I wrote that, I think. So I probably would change it now a little bit, because you really do, once you get those multiples, you almost have to set that deadline. Everybody kind of expects it. I mean, you don't have to, but I think it's good business to do that. But I would say, we'll probably review as they come and respond according to traffic. If we get multiples, we'll probably go and have an offer deadline. But I'll keep you, this is what I always want to do, is I want to make sure that buyer's agent isn't going to feel like they're going to wake up one morning and it's going to be pending and they're not going to let that happen. So I always say, but don't worry, I will stay in contact with you. I will keep you up to date as things come about. Once they submit an offer, I'll say that, but if it's just somebody sniffing around, I may not actually.
Yeah.
'Cause-
I'd say as a buyer's agent, the most frustrating thing is when you flat out ask, like, my clients loved it, we're gonna write,
Mhm.
are you setting a deadline?
Mhm.
And they say not at this time, and then so my clients are excited, like,
Yeah.
oh yay, maybe we'll get in before there's a million offers.
Yeah.
And then we submit, and then the next day they're like, we decided to set a deadline, it'll be Monday, and we were the first offer. And
Mhm.
so now we're gonna get outbid, because even if we're over asking, now they can tell every offer after us that they're over asking, and it's so defeating to the
Totally.
clients.
Yeah.
So I try not, when I'm on the listing side, I try to avoid putting buyer's agents in that
Absolutely.
position.
Yeah, and I
Just
think it's
because I
great.
need it.
I think that kind of consideration is great, and I think what I would say is, but I would say what they see, like, we're we don't have multiple offers this time, or we said, we don't have a deadline set at this time, but if we do get multiple offers, it's likely we'll set a deadline.
Mhm.
Just so they know, like, that way they can't I don't want anybody to come back to me and say you didn't treat me fairly,
Right,
right? I mean, it's not, I say this, it's real estate, not real friends, but you want people to want to do business with you want people to feel like they got a fair shake, and so, I think it's good business to get as many offers as you can. When you set that deadline, people could get a little bit worrisome, so like, I think as we get further, as everything kind of, this is what I've noticed, is we get really, really hot, our market gets super duper duper hot, and everybody's really, really aggressive, and those people I'll buy. And then there's these leftover people, and they're kind of not as aggressive, and so we're gonna start seeing people hear the word multiple offers, and they'll start running from it, as opposed to getting aggressive and trying to win the offer situation. And I think we're starting to approach that point, unless it's a big change. So you have to be real careful about how you word it, and it's kind of a crapshoot. So like, that's why I try to walk the fence on it. Like I say, like, well, we might do it if we have multiple offers. I don't know if we're gonna get multiple offers, hard to say, just so I don't scare away somebody.
As listing agents with multiple offers, how are you guys keeping track of each other calls you?
You
well,
can't.
like Ellie said, I would only keep track if he
Yeah.
writes an offer,
Yeah.
not every agent that calls you.
And I try to push all communication to text. So that way I have some sort of, something to drag upon. Hopefully they text me and they put the address in, or at least the street name in, right? So then you can call it up and say, so you can just get to everybody, like, cause I'll do that. Like if I get an offer and they're just not pouring in, then I will go back to the other people who've shown the property and say, hey, we just got an offer, are you people interested? Or I'll say, are you people interested? And they'll say yes, and I'll say, hey, we just got an offer. And if they start asking for information, especially if I'm not super secure on my sales price and then the offer I have isn't crazy high, then I will kind of really like soft shoe it a little bit. I'll be like, we have an offer, but it's pretty good, it's pretty good. We could probably accept it, but love to have if your clients are interested, definitely encourage them to get involved. Because again, it's just not that, I think we're not as crazy competitive. Somehow, you'll know, you have a listing, you'll know it's hot because people be calling you for the second instant market. The other ones though, you'll kind of know when you're like, I'm not sure about the price on this one. We might be a little bit higher. Traffic isn't quite what I thought it would be. And that's where you need to like play it a little cooler, not be so aggressive, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say always respond to all the offers, because again, as a buyer's agent, it's so annoying.
Yeah.
Like, did you receive my offer?
Mhm.
Like acknowledge it.
Yeah.
But when you acknowledge it, that's when you can put it in command, and that's when you can start tracking like, oh yeah, I have these 4 offers from these agents. That
Yeah.
balance it out.
Yeah.
As far as every call you get, you guys aren't, I'm saying if you're getting 80 calls about auction house.
No way. Well, imagine you have 10 listings and you're getting a phone call every hour about one listing, and you're getting 10 phone calls an hour about it becomes a lot to keep track
I feel
of.
like most agents text anyways.
Yeah.
Because they know they'll probably get more of a response
Mhm.
if they text you than call you, because you aren't busy and it is a hot listing.
Yeah.
So then it's always nice to like keep track of texts that way too. Like the only time I follow up is if they haven't written an offer, is if they indicated that they were super interested and they still haven't seen an offer. I'd be like, hey, we're getting ready to review offers. Just wanted to give you the opportunity to still submit if you guys are still interested. Or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's the only time I follow up, is if they've already told me, my clients saw it, they love it, I should be writing later. And we
Yeah.
all know clients change their minds. Or they go to the next house, and they're like, never mind, it's this one, you know?
Right.
So, but I always at least follow up with them, like, hey, we're getting ready to review offers at 7 o'clock tonight. I wasn't sure if you were still submitting, just wanted to make sure you knew we were reviewing tonight. And then sometimes they'll say, yes, sorry, I'm working on it, or, oh, no, they changed their mind.
Totally.
The last minute.
Yeah,
I also would include, like if I talk to somebody on the phone and they're asking me about deadline or stuff like that, I'll say, I will probably call you back. I'm most likely to call you back. I'm really good about calling people back about this information. But I will also put it on the listing. I will
Yeah,
also
me
announce
too.
it in the private remarks. So watch list the listing. And this is good for you buyers agents too. If you have a client who's interested in property, throw it on the watch list. That way you, when they make a data change, you find out. And that data change could be that deadline.
well, I've been putting in the private remarks to no deadline set at this time. We'll set a deadline if multiple offers are received.
Right.
Or whatever,
Yeah.
so then they know to check back
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, because you're always looking at that, as a listing agent, I'm always looking at that private remarks thing, like, well, I'm gonna say that, like, what should we put there? Like, that's, put stuff like that, it's good, yeah. Tony, do you have any other thoughts on this?
I was just showing as you guys were talking that you could put it in the notes on the contact, right?
Yeah,
Tracking the interested agents. And just because you did it once, you can always come in and edit it and just keep adding them to it as you go. So it's all in one note.
I've got a listing and I've got a phone call from a buyer's agent who's saying they're gonna write an offer. And my clients are calling me saying, hey, do we have any offers yet? What's going on? Do we have any offers? I would never tell them unless I was 100% sure that we're getting an offer, that we're getting an offer. Because their expectations, you're all about managing expectations, their expectations just climb through the roof the second you say that. And then, like Rochelle said, they go to the next house, and they're like, oh my gosh, nope, this is the one. Or their financing falls through, or they get in a fight. You know, there's a thousand things can happen, right? Where they don't get the offer, you don't get the offer, and then your clients are thinking that you screwed it up. Like that you somehow did something to mess, because our house is perfect, right? So you must have screwed it up. So I hold back that information until I actually have an offer in my hand. I would never.
Yeah, same on the buyer side, like if I got a verbal agreement, I don't tell my clients
No.
until we get it
Absolutely,
signed.
absolutely, yep.
So that like there's no crushing news that something. we're
Yeah, the only time I share unwritten information, like it's not on an addendum or an offer, the only time I would share that information with my client is if it was material to them making a decision at that moment. So like, if they're sitting there saying, well, should we take this offer? I mean, we just got it, should we take it? And I would say, look, I've gotten phone calls from people, I think we're getting more offers. I think we should give them a chance, you know, depending on the situation. But like, that's when I would share the possibility of something happening versus, because you wouldn't want them to sign it and be like, oh, well, yeah, no, they told me they were gonna write an offer, I just didn't believe them, so I didn't tell you, and you know, you signed on for $50,000 less. So you would never want to find yourself in that situation.
Well, you can always say too, like, well, they gave us until X time to respond, so let's just wait for a minute. There's no reason to respond right this second, we have this time to think about it.
Yeah.
And I have gotten tons of phone calls about your home today, so there could be potential there.
And as a rule, I almost always ignore that offer deadline, unless we're getting out of hand, unless we're like within bounds. Like I always think that you should at least be able to wait till Sunday to make a decision. Like if they put Saturday, I gotta think you can always get to Sunday, maybe Monday before making a decision, before they get irritated. Now there could be another property, you could lose them, but you could lose them anyways, right? They could be out looking at properties anyways, have an offer deadline for, you know, whenever, and they could have found something else you could lose them to. So the offer deadlines to me don't mean a ton. You just have to have some language loaded up to reactivate the offer if it expires. I always like if I let an offer expire, but we want to work with that offer, and I'm not going to counter or anything, that I would actually prepare an addendum for the buyer. You know, have my client say, you know, the offer, you know, buyer's offer extended up into delivery of this addendum or whatever, or execution of this addendum, whatever it is. And so just as a courtesy to the buyer's agent, I'll do some of that work just to be cordial, and send it over to them, and so they can reactivate their offer and they accept it. So.
Well, 9 times out of 10, the buyer's agent's gonna ask you, or let you know they're getting ready to submit an offer, and you can just say, hey, do you mind making the deadline Sunday? Because I already have an appointment to sit down with my clients on Sunday, or whatever. Or my clients are busy all weekend with family activities. Sunday would be the best time for us to respond.
Yeah.
And then you already set that expectation, so you don't even have to worry about it.
setting expectations. You should just call this seller offer setting expectations.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think we should go through like some of the key points in here that I would look at in an offer? Would you guys like to go through that in the agreement? All right, so obviously I'd like to make sure this top part's filled out correctly and that the buyers and names are obviously easy to understand, check the boxes, all that crap. Down here, obviously this is the part your client's probably most concerned about is line A, but that's just part of the deal, right? Line A here is just the price, but can they actually pay this price?
Right.
We're gonna find out, right? But we'd like to have some proof that they can pay this price. Earnest money amount. Some people are really, really hot on earnest money. Like Alex yesterday on Friday, I don't know if you guys caught that. He would never accept an offer with less than 2% earnest money. I feel like it's so hard to get a hold of the earnest money that it just needs to be a reasonable amount. And actually the grand scheme of things, it can only be what, if you were ever going into, you could have it be too much, go into arbitration and not actually get that entire amount because it has to be a realistic amount. Like on a $600,000 house, $100,000 earnest money would be really hard to prove to an arbitrator that your client's actually lost $100,000 by the buyer not closing. So, but it is good to see a big number there. Not bad to see a good number there. It means that the buyers got some liquid cash to put down and they're willing to put it in a neutral third party account. It shows a lot of trust. So it is a good thing. All things being equal, if it was a mediocre amount here, but everything else was great, I'd be okay with it. So this next line we never really deal with. And then the down payment amount I think is pretty important too. You'd like to know how liquid they are, though. There's so many loan programs now, jumbo loans, all this stuff. Like just because they're not putting a lot down doesn't mean they're not well qualified, right? So I would rather, like, as opposed to looking at this, Tanya, can you move down to the next page? I'd be more concerned with this, is who's the pre-approval letter printed on? Who wrote it? Is it somebody that I know? Is it Academy Mortgage? Is it Guild Mortgage? Is it Director's Mortgage? Is it Rocket Mortgage? Because it's Rocket Mortgage, I don't know, right? Like,
Make your face there.
what's that?
We know how you feel about that.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, actually, so a friend of my daughter's interned with them, and they're actually a really like progressive, smart company. I don't know that they have a great product. They're great at marketing it, like go online, your offer's as good as cash. It's not, but like it's funny that you tell people that. Right. And then you should be able to tell everything a lender needs to know about you as a borrower in 3 minutes online, right? That seems super reasonable. Anyways, so for me, the pre-approval letter is written by is probably more important than the loan amount to me. But then obviously this is super important. If it's a conventional loan or jumbo loan, I'd feel a lot better than that than FHA, VA. I always have a soft spot for veterans, but because it's a great product for a veteran, it's not a great product for a seller. Those federally insured loans aren't great for a seller. All things being equal, you prefer it to be conventionally financed, in my opinion. Sorry. We've gone over this a little bit, but the FHA and the VA appraisal processes are much more stringent than what you would get from a conventional appraisal. And so for that reason, all things being equal, I always go with conventional. Even maybe depending on the property, if the property is rough around the edges, I would probably go towards the conventional loan, even with a price difference if it's minor. And if it's if I know that we're gonna get caught up on a roof and a crawl space and all this stuff because it's VA friendly or FHA financed, then I would rather go towards a conventional loan. And this is some new language. We're gonna go over this tomorrow, but they've made it now to where you're going to conclude an amendatory clause with the FHA in federal VA loans. And they've added it right here, which is smart because I've seen a lot of VA and FHA loans come through with like appraisal gap coverage. And that is going to be thrown out the window because you're going to have to sign this addendum that says that they don't have to buy the house if it doesn't appraise.
So I'm going to include that addendum with the contract you just wrote.
You should. Yeah, you should.
It's like,
Yeah, you have to.
what is this?
You actually have to. Yeah, he's actually, again, meeting the minds, it may not be a meeting the minds without that there. So you can't really do appraisal gap coverage with a VA loan or a FHA loan because of this addendum. Tommy, do you want to pull it up?
Yep, I was just gonna do that.
Cool. This is also referred to as the FHA escape clause.
Escape
Okay,
clause.
so what's that?
Did you say the escape clause?
Yeah, people call it, that's another name for it, is a FHA or VA escape clause.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so it's expressly agreed that notwithstanding in any other provision of this contract, the purchaser shall not be obligated to complete the purchase of the property described herein or incur any penalty by forfeiture of earnest money deposit or otherwise, unless the purchaser has, given in accordance with HUD, FHA, and VA requirements, a written statement by the Federal Housing Commissioner, Department of Veteran Affairs, and direct endorsement lender setting forth the appraised value of the property not being less than the purchase price. So the contract purchase price, the purchaser shall have the privilege and option of proceeding with the consummation of the contract without regards to the amount of the appraised value. The appraised value is arrived and determined the maximum mortgage. The Department of Housing and HUD will ensure that HUD does not warrant the value or condition of the property. The purchaser shall safely himself. Anyways, the point is, they're going to buy the house if it's appraised, so you can't undo it, right? Because once this is signed, you're done with that. And so I guess it's good that's being done up front. Maybe they could sign an addendum afterwards that might be enforceable, but I mean, this is like law, FHA law. So in the VA clause, very similar. It's expressly agreed that notwithstanding any other provision of this sale agreement, the buyer shall not incur any penalty by forfeiture of earnest money or otherwise be obligated to complete the purchase of the property described herein. If the contract purchase price and something else exceeds the reasonable value of the property established by the Department of Veteran Affairs. So again, getting the appraised value of the property, you can't really use an appraisal gap coverage with this document. So another reason why conventional loan wins probably over an FHA or VA loan. Thanks, Tanya.
You're welcome. I feel like Vanna White.
Kelly, just to make sure I understand that too.
Yeah.
My friends did this because it sounds silly, but if someone had an FHA loan,
Mhm.
3.5% down or something, they're doing that for some unknown reason because they think they can come up with an appraisal gap. 20,000, you can't do that on an
Well,
FHA.
so your clients can agree to do that. They can express that they're going to do it. They can't be held to it with this document. Because of this document, they can't be held to it. And there probably is going to be a subsequent document that the lender is going to want you to sign too. It's going to say the exact same thing.
You can.
So they can do it, but from the seller's perspective, you're like, it's basically a handshake, right? You're just telling me you're going to do it, but you don't have to. Because I've already agreed, I'm going to have to agree to get the loan to close, I'm going to have to agree to sign this document or one just like it, which will undo what you said. So, yes. Yes. Okay. Should we go back to the agreement?
So this document, sorry, is
Yeah.
saying if there is a gap, the buyers aren't responsible unless
Yes.
stated otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, it's not even unless stated otherwise. It just says they're not responsible. They're just not responsible.
Oh.
Yeah. And so,
So could you wouldn't, let's say you have an FHA loan and part of your additional provisions is waiving the appraisal, but then you have that form.
yeah.
So if you're showing your clients like this offer, would you say, well, they said they're waiving appraisal, but because of this form, that's not really a bonus?
Yeah,
They're not
exactly.
actually waiving the appraisal.
Yeah. That's how I would advise them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly how I would advise them. Other things I'd look for would be, can you go just up to the top of this page?
Yep.
I always want to look really close at line 59. Where's the earnest money coming from? Like, where's the down payment coming from? Or if it's a cash offer, where's it coming from? Is it liquid? Is it wrapped up in a stock? Is it wrapped up in another property? Is it wrapped up in the stock market? Is it a gift? Right? So I want to know if there's text in here, I always want to read that. We always want to pay attention to what that is. I mean, you should pay attention to every line of this, right? But like, I would, like, anything right here is concerning. I want to know what that is. Hopefully it's just a really great disclosure of where the money is and it's liquid and available. But if it's something else, I'd want to know. And then down at 5, in section 5, 5.1, which is just at the bottom of this page. Yeah, what does this say? What does it say there? Like, what's the other added contingency? Because like, if this is where people will sneak in the sale of the house, like the sale is contingent upon the sale of a property. Okay, well, what's that property? Where's it? Is it on the market? Is it pending sale? What's the deal with it? If it's not on the market, when? How much is it going on the market for? Like, these are things that you would need to follow up and find out. It's funny, you know, like, because the market's so hot, we would never accept an offer on a contingent property, right? Because it's gonna sell, it's a hot market, probably gonna sell, right? But we never do it because we don't have to. But in a slow market, when the property may never sell, we'll totally think about an offer that's contingent upon the closing of their house. I think it's a little ironic, so anyway.
Or even an offer that hasn't even hit the market yet. We've had those, right?
Well, in a bad market, I'm actually more bullish on the house that's never been on the market as opposed to one that's sitting there and no one's buying. Like, it's already on the market, nobody wants it. It's like, hey, hi there. It's like telling me no one wants to buy this house, we're not gonna close it unless you make a drastic change. So, in a down market, especially when you're gonna start seeing these contingencies happen. Be ready to ask some tough questions to the seller or the buyer's agent to find out what they have and whether your clients really want to get into that. I don't like contingent offers. I try to stick. It's just because, like, I would rather do it in a good market than a bad market. Because who wants 2 houses to sell instead of just one? Okay, let's continue on.
All right.
This is kind of blah, blah, blah. Again, check the additional financing here. Closing costs, that's where they should be listed. Pay attention to that. Again, anything else additional there, weird, you want to check that out, make sure that's it. And make sure the numbers up and above are, I'm sorry, Tanya, I keep jumping around on you.
That's
But
all
up here
right.
in 5.2, make sure that these numbers, like, double check these numbers, make these dates, make sure that they're reasonable.
And filled in.
Yeah, if they're not filled in, Tanya, it'll be okay.
Tanya doesn't like it.
I get it.
Fill 'em in.
Yeah, I think I like to fill in the blanks too.
Lazy.
Yeah. Okay, now we're in the contingency section here. Again, check that these dates are reasonable, all the way up in the not just here, but in the clause above with regards to the preliminary title report. Make sure those dates are reasonable. Make sure that your timeline for your home inspection is reasonable. Make sure that what they're asking to inspect is what your clients want to inspect. I would definitely have a discussion with my clients about what they've agreed to allow someone to do to their property. So I would double check that, make sure that date's good.
That's why I always use a professional inspection addendum.
Yeah.
Just to cover all bases.
Yep. And well, it's a great form and it's got a lot of different inspections on it. And I think you could check every single one of those. And most of the time people, as a buyer's agent, you can check every single one of those and probably not get any pushback. As a seller's agent, you should be looking at that form and know what your clients are agreeing to inspect. I mean, it's always weird to tell people they can't inspect something. So as a buyer's agent, it's great to ask for all that. As a seller's agent, you need to be a little protective of your client, but at the same time, if you're telling the buyer they can't do a tank sweep of the property, you're telling them that there's a tank somewhere on the property you don't want to know about, right?
Mhm.
So
You can also, if there's a septic or a well, like you can ask them to pump it, but you haven't inspected.
Yeah.
Whatever.
yeah,
You can split the cost of that stuff during, and that addendum.
yeah, and there's also if there's a well and septic, then you're gonna have to use the other addendum as well.
Yeah, but on the professional inspection addendum, it
Just check
says,
that.
there's a check of who's paying
Paying
for
for
what.
Yep.
So you could say like septic pump paid for by the seller,
Mhm.
but septic inspection paid for by the buyer.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just so you can see, make sure you definitely check one of these.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Empty. Back to the other form.
sure.
I wish it would stay where you were at.
I know.
We already hit those. Any of these?
You know, it's good to go over section 20 with your seller, just so they know they need to relay the information that's pertinent to like the ring or whatever it is their smart home feature they're giving, so they know that they're gonna have to facilitate the transfer of the use of that agreement of that tool. Wood burning stove and fireplace inserts. That probably have a conversation about that. There's usually another addendum that goes along with this right here. Again, there's another, if we don't have it, we don't necessarily have a meeting of the minds. It says who's going to take responsibility for moving a fireplace insert or wood burning stove that does not adhere to the Clean Air Act. Home warranty is here. You know, check the box. Again, I always tell you, if you're a buyer's agent, leave that blank and figure it out later. We always check no if you're a buyer's agent. But when I'm in multiple offer situations, I see that check with a number here. I just scratch my head saying, you've been around, like, this is your first home sale? Like, you're competing against other offers and you want $800 for a home warranty. Like, go buy it for your client yourself. This is crazy.
They can always add it after.
Yeah, it's better to add it after. Negotiate at the home inspection, but don't do it. I don't think you should do it here. Just like, it just seems like you're muddying the water over something that's not all that expensive. And it may lose you the house. Wouldn't you be, as a buyer's agent, wouldn't it suck to lose a house over this $400 or $600 home warranty? Wouldn't want to do it. Unless it was your client's, like, this was their hot button issue. And I would have a discussion with the clients about that for sure. All right, let's go on to the next part. So section 23, another spot where your radar needs to go up if something's written there because it's a little off the beat. Make sure that what they're writing is actual term that is enforceable. I see so many things written here. This sale is contingent upon blah, 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 but doesn't have blah, 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 blah. That actually explains what happens when that contingency fails or succeeds, right? So look out there, make sure it's clear and concise. You know, like this sale is contingent upon the Niners winning the Super Bowl this year, right?
Hey, that's good.
Right. Well, what happens when the Niners don't? What happens when it's likely the Niners don't win the Super Bowl this year? What happens then? Like, how do you undo that? So that's just an example. Escrows to be closed at. You know, I look at that. I'd like it to be my person, but I'm not going to get too wrapped up if it's not my person. If it's somebody that I really don't like, maybe I would address it then. Prorations, I usually do. We look for, make sure that the closing date, it could be either date. It's not usually kind of a small amount. It's not a huge number. But again, you want to present that to your client because it could affect their bottom line. You know, make sure that earnest money amount's there. And then it's always going to go directly into an escrow account, right? Always an escrow, not any of these other options here. And then this should be, if this doesn't say 3 days, I want to know why. So if earnest money is not going to be deposited, if that says 10 days, I want to know why. If it says 4 days, I want to know why. 3 days, I'm good. But anything different than that, there better be a good explanation as to why. Like they're flying from Australia to Portland and they're losing a day somewhere. I don't know. But there has to be a good reason. So I don't want to know what that is. Let's continue to go down. And then obviously possession is huge, right? We want to know the closing date is huge, right? We want to know, but make sure it's a good closing date that works for a client. But then possession is such a big deal these days. So making sure that that those 2 dates line up with your client's expectations. And then down here, these can be huge, right? So if there is a tenant on your client's property, who has responsibility for evicting that tenant may be the difference between. Right, it could be the difference between accepting offer or not accepting an offer, right? Like you want, as a buyer's agent, you want to be the owner. As a seller's agent, you want to make sure that whatever box is checked here meets the actual realistic expectation of what happens in a real estate transaction adheres with what they can actually perform. Because if it says seller's responsible to remove the tenant, and there's a tenant in it, and they want to close in 30 days, well, that's not gonna happen. Seller can't be responsible for that, so. Because you probably won't, unless they have already got an agreement in place to have that tenant removed, or that tenant's willfully leaving. Yeah, yeah, no, not in this world, right? That's why I always get hesitant when people say, or writing in deals and they're saying, like, our buyer's agents will ask me, so, like, should I close? Like, how are we gonna handle this? It's like, well, the winning offer probably is taking the tenant. If it's a multiple offer situation, it's likely they're taking the tenant, they're gonna deal with the risk of having to remove that tenant. But in a perfect world, you wouldn't have to, so when are they gonna give notice? Like, when is the seller gonna give the buyer, the tenant notice? So you wanna probably close 90 days after that, or sooner if they vacate the property. But they get the full 90 days to move out, so, and when are they gonna give it? Are they gonna, because most of the time the seller's probably not gonna wanna give that notice until they cleared the inspection, maybe the appraisal. So, boy, that could string closing out so far.
Well, the ordinance is now though, isn't it? If they're in the middle of a lease, I suppose they have to give it 90 days, one of the only houses that the owner's selling it.
Right, and it commits to the term, right? Right, if it's month to month, yeah, it's month to month, and they're selling it to someone, to a buyer who's going to move in, I believe that triggers the 90 day with causation.
But if you
or
close,
without
then
causation.
that option goes away though, is my understanding.
I don't-
The new owner possesses that you don't have that right anymore.
I don't, that's a good question, I don't
I've
know.
done a couple webinars on it, that was my takeaway. It's
Yeah.
like only the current owner has that right.
Yeah.
because the current lease is like-
So money for sure, right? At the very least, it's super complicated. When I'm a listing agent and I go in, I'm listing a property that is just like a single family residence that has a renter in them, I'm begging my clients to get rid of that renter. I'm convinced, I'm like with every fiber of my being, that we'll sell the house for more without the tenant in there for so many reasons. One, the house probably won't show great with the tenant in there. The tenant doesn't have to leave for the showings. So you've got a buyer's walking through somebody else's house and somebody else is sitting there telling them everything wrong with it or telling them everything great about it or just, being disgusting, whatever. There's so many reasons how that incident could go wrong. And then that's gonna affect the value of the house. That's gonna affect how many people want to bring offers on the property. So I'm a big proponent of getting the tenant out of there.
Or so many people are scared of what you just
Yeah.
talked about, like being stuck with a tenant when you actually want to live there
Mhm.
and trying to get rid of them. And
For sure.
Oregon protects a lot of people
Oh, yeah,
from getting evicted.
absolutely.
So,
That's right.
yeah, it can be,
And it's not easy to evict a tenant,
no,
so in this market either. So like, for both sides, like, it's hard to get, we wanna sell, but we've got a tenant there, buy your tenant out. Give them $5,000, whatever you gotta do. But 10, like, it's worth it. It's probably
one in
worth it.
Portland, don't you have to pay for moving costs?
You can, yeah, which is equal to like 1 month's rent, I believe.
Yeah,
So it doesn't have to be. I think it caps at 5. I think it caps at $5,000. I can't remember.
Actually, they changed it so much.
Kelly, what was that form? Is it form 608? No, it's
SB
not.
608, but that's SB 608 for everything but Multnomah County, right?
Everybody but Multnomah County?
Because Multnomah County has their own rules that govern.
But I gave that to my clients for them to look at because we were looking at a property that they wanted the buyers to take on the tenant while they were waiting for their 90 days to get out.
Yeah,
So that helped them decide whether or not they actually wanted to deal with that.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
super
having that
important
handy.
when you're representing buyers to have a resource to point them to for a quick answer on that. And you shouldn't be answering those questions.
No.
Alright, so checking those looking at those boxes may be paramount. And after that, I think it gets pretty tame after this, I think, Tanya.
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
section we kind of breezed by
Yeah.
as personal property.
Yeah,
I don't know if you wanna tag on that, cause I have some people that give me a hard time that I put like free range stove, and they're like, obviously it comes with the stove, and I was like,
No,
well,
but it's
I've
not.
seen that people took the stove.
It
So,
may not
because it
qualify.
wasn't in the contract, so
Right.
I always put everything,
I put
even if
freestanding
it's-
range. I always put
Yeah.
freestanding range if it's a freestanding range.
and yeah,
All
So-
window coverings is a good thing to put in there, and then specific items that your buyer wants, and if you're a seller, you definitely gotta look at that. You wanna make sure that you're not leaving something that you didn't want to keep. And then also if there's like a fixtures or something like that, that you were going to leave, or that you didn't wanna leave, like a chandelier, or
Or washer and dryer.
washer and dryer. I had a big presentation on what's a fixture and not a fixture, and it's really murky, guys. It's not cut and dry. I mean, there's a lot of different definitions of what it is, and none of them are necessarily right. I don't know.
Well, and I think, again, back to expectations, it's good to have those conversations, especially like outhouses or sheds,
Mhm.
things like that, because sometimes people assume that they'll be taken,
Right.
and then they're mad when they're left, or vice
Mhm. Or
versa,
vice
they
versa.
assume they're gonna be left, and
Yeah.
then they're like, well, where's the shed? I wanted the shed. But it wasn't in any of the paperwork,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
On our little meeting we had here last Friday with Alex and Regina, the one thing that they both had in common was they picked up the phone and they talked to the party on the other side to figure out what those expectations are. And then you probably want to reflect, like if they're saying, oh, we're gonna leave it or we're gonna take it, make sure that your offer within your client's wishes matches what you're being told. Don't just go on the word, oh, they're taking the shed or they're leaving the shed. Don't just go on that, because when they get changed their mind, and if you don't have a term in the agreement that backs it up, then it is a good interpretation. Yeah.
Well, and same like with the ring doorbell and stuff like that,
Yeah.
because they can take that, they don't have to leave the ring doorbell.
Well, I think a ring doorbell, I mean, it's like, you wouldn't just take a doorbell,
Yeah.
right? You shouldn't. It's a fixture.
Yeah.
It's,
But I mean,
bolted
that's
to
a
the-
conversation to have with their clients,
Yeah.
like you might wanna switch out the ring doorbell, and
Right.
keep it
Yeah.
before you go
yeah,
on the market, stuff like that.
definitely, yeah.
Like a Nest thermostat, because of the same thing, right?
Nest is a fixture.
Yeah,
Yeah. Then those fall into the smart home.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's an addendum, that actually section, whatever it is, 20 is the
Mhm.
most ignored section of this agreement by every party. So section 20 actually calls for the seller, like depending on how you write it as a listing agent, as a buyer's agent. But like it says, depending on what you check here, yes, no, unknown. If yes, seller to identify all smart home features in writing within 3 business days. That never happens. I don't think that ever happens. On an addendum, if there is one, I've never reviewed it. Of the date of this agreement is signed and accepted. In addition, seller to provide necessary information to buyer to access that smart home feature at closing. That probably happens more than not with a little note, probably on the table. Unless otherwise agreed to in writing, smart home features refers to appliances, lightings, and/or electrical devices that can be controlled remotely by the owner, often via a mobile app. Some smart home features and home-enabled devices can also operate in conjunction with other devices in the home and communicate information. But this first part is the most ignored part of our agreement. Probably, it used to be the lead-based paint section, but now it's this. I'm sure this is it. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, let's go down to the last thing I think is important. Would be, for me, is how they're taking title to the property.
Yep.
And only because I just want to make sure this isn't weird. Like I see someone's name and or assigned or to be determined at closing. I always think that's a little bit weird. It's like, who's buying the house? Are the people who are title buying, who are showing as the principals, are they the ones buying it? Or are they gonna try to flip it to somebody else in the last minute? And what's that mean to our sale, right? And so I'm always a little weary when I see weird things here. And if it's a trust, then I want to make sure that if they're getting a loan, then I want to call that mortgage broker and say, hey, have you reviewed the trust? You know it's a trust. Have you taken a look at it to make sure that you can lend to this trust? Because some lenders, they won't do it. Like if the trust isn't written properly and they may not be able to foreclose on the property, then obviously I don't loan on it, right? So have you reviewed the terms of the trust to make sure that you can get the loan? And then obviously, again, expiration date here of the offer. I don't pay, like I said, I don't pay a ton of attention to that. That's about it.
That's
That's
it.
all I got, Tanya.
Huh? That's all I got.
I took up all the air in the room again.
That's okay. You're good at that. That's what you do.
Good at that. Okay, well, thank you guys. I think that's about it. Is there anything else you want to add? Any questions?